You guys offer her a bag to come join you guys?
Yeah, well, I feel like it's just so crazy because the growth that Caitlin has brought to the game, the sheer amount of money that she's making these teams, people are having to move their venues for when she comes to play. And she's getting paid like $75,000 a year. So definitely we want to be a part of that change. And that's what we're doing. We're obviously, I think she deserves that. I think she should be one of the top players in the world just for the sheer numbers that she's bringing. So I think that's something that needs to change, and that's where
Unrivaled's opening night pulled just 40,000 viewers. Caitlin Clark's playoff games, over 3 million. Yet Nafisa Collier went on live television claiming her league had figured out sustainable women's basketball, while the WNBA somehow hasn't. The math isn't just off, it's non-existent. The ratings don't lie. And now the panic is real. Behind the scenes, investors are starting to realize they may have bet on the wrong horse. Because one uncomfortable truth keeps rising to the surface: star power still matters. Visibility matters. Eyeballs matter. You can't build a league on vibes and talking points while ignoring the one thing that actually drives revenue: fans showing up. So the real question isn't whether Unrivaled believes in its vision. It's whether the market does. Will Unrivaled quietly fold before the end of 2026? Or can they pull off a miracle and salvage a league the numbers already seem to be rejecting?
The fact that the Rose and Lunar Owls on the primetime slot on TNT had... I don't think this is 40,000 viewers, because I think this is the NA is the actual viewers. I think this is like the ratings numbers. I think this is in and around 100,000 viewers.
Let's start with the numbers, because they tell the entire story. Unrivaled's opening night pulled 40,000 viewers in the key 18 to 49 demographic. Not 400,000. Not 4 million. 40,000. That's not a television audience. That's a high school gym crowd. And this was supposed to be revolutionary basketball. The future of the women's game. The bold new model that would prove the WNBA had been doing it wrong all along. Instead, it proved something far more uncomfortable. Without Caitlin Clark, the audience disappears. No matter how polished the branding is. No matter how loud the talking points are. You don't build a league on theory. You build it on stars. And the numbers just expose that reality in the most brutal way possible.
So the first set of Unrivaled ratings are in, and it's been kind of grim. And by kind of grim, I mean really, really grim. If you are Unrivaled, this is... If these are your ratings every single week on True TV, it's not the biggest disaster in the world, because by the looks of things, these True TV ratings were similar enough to what they were a year ago.
Now compare that to Caitlin Clark's impact. Her games consistently pulled over 2 million viewers during her rookie season. Some playoff matchups surged past 3 million. Regular season Indiana Fever games featuring Clark drew audiences so large they forced ESPN executives to rethink their entire programming strategy. That's not hype. That's leverage. Clark brought mainstream attention that translated into real eyeballs on real screens. Not projected growth. Not hypothetical markets. Actual people watching actual games because they wanted to see what she would do next. And the gap between 40,000 and 3 million isn't just a difference in scale. It's the difference between a niche product and a cultural moment. Between investors getting excited about potential and investors demanding answers about why their money is evaporating. Most of all, it's the difference between Nafisa Collier's confidence and the cold, unforgiving reality of what the market is actually saying.
Nafisa Collier was on an interview with CBS on a podcast and was asked about what she was most excited about for the coming season. And she said the CBA, not winning a championship, not running it back, but the CBA. And then she was asked a bunch of questions about the CBA, and she acknowledged everybody else except for the one player who's made people notice, and that's Caitlin Clark. A good 15-20-minute interview, and at no point does she acknowledge that Caitlin Clark is what has given them, or who has given them, the leverage in negotiation, if they have any leverage to begin with. No, instead she talked about how they have filled up the arenas. She talked about how people are watching on TV. She talked about Unrivaled, in fact, her creation. At no point does she mention, yo, Caitlin Clark brought eyes to this product. And now when we walk through an airport, people recognize us. In fact, she said that people now notice them. Why the hell do you think that is? No one knew who the hell you were until Caitlin Clark showed up. This is the non-stop narrative. I mean, man, you thought Nafisa Collier was smart enough to recognize this. But even she is stuck in delusion syndrome. It seems like no one can be helped. Even after Cheryl Miller has told the world, everybody despises Caitlin Clark. They all hate on her. Damn shame.
Collier walked into this season talking big. She positioned Unrivaled as the next evolution of women's basketball, something the WNBA supposedly couldn't deliver despite decades of trying. The marketing leaned hard on star power, fast-paced 3-on-3 play, and the promise of a product that would finally capture a wider audience. On paper, it all sounded convincing. They had established names, solid production value, real financial backing, resources most startups can only dream of. This wasn't supposed to be a gamble. It was supposed to be a breakthrough. Then the numbers dropped. And suddenly, everyone realized the emperor had no clothes. Because this is what real star power actually looks like. Caitlin Clark didn't just move television ratings. She reshaped the entire economic ecosystem around women's basketball. Her jersey sales shattered WNBA records. Indiana Fever ticket prices surged throughout the season. Arena attendance spiked everywhere her team went, not just in Indianapolis, but in every city lucky enough to host them. And the ripple effects went even deeper. Sponsors started writing bigger checks. Media coverage expanded beyond sports networks into mainstream outlets. Young girls across America pulled on number 22 jerseys and practiced her shooting motion in their driveways. That's what a true star does. They don't just play well. They create cultural moments that transcend the sport itself. They bring in people who've never watched women's basketball before and turn them into fans who keep watching long after the final buzzer. Clark did all of that in one season. Unrivaled couldn't do it with an entire roster of established players and a format designed specifically for highlight moments. And that contrast says more than any press release ever could.
The early Unrivaled TV numbers are not good for season 2, that is, which is certainly no cause for celebration, but is cause.
The financial backing behind Unrivaled makes this failure even more alarming. This wasn't a garage startup running on hope and credit cards. Unrivaled launched with a reported $340 million valuation, built on projections that now look completely detached from reality. Investors weren't buying a passion project, they were buying expected returns. Instead, they're staring at viewership numbers that wouldn't impress a local college basketball coach. That valuation was based on assumptions about audience engagement and revenue potential that simply never materialized. And social media tells the same story. Caitlin Clark's games generated millions of interactions across every platform. Twitter exploded every time she stepped on the floor. Instagram highlights racked up views faster than most viral content. TikTok creators built entire accounts around breaking down her game. The engagement felt organic because people genuinely wanted to talk about what they were watching. Unrivaled social media presence? Crickets. Even with paid promotion and coordinated marketing pushes, they couldn't generate real conversation outside a small circle of basketball insiders. No buzz, no momentum, no cultural pull. And that's where the difference becomes impossible to ignore. Casual viewers don't tune in just to watch good basketball. They need stories, rivalries, personalities, reasons to care from one game to the next. Caitlin Clark provided all of that naturally. Her rivalry with Angel Reese created storylines ESPN could build entire segments around. Her chemistry with teammates like Aaliyah Boston and Kelsey Mitchell gave fans emotional connections to invest in. Her game-to-game improvement created a narrative arc that kept people coming back to see what happened next. Unrivaled's 3-on-3 format might work for short bursts, all-star weekends, summer exhibitions, but building an entire league around it strips away everything that drives long-term fandom. There's no playoff race simmering for months. No individual achievement chases. No evolving team chemistry. Just a series of disconnected games that blur together without emotional payoff. And now we have to talk about Nafisa Collier's comments, because they aged like milk left in the sun. Early in the season, she went on live television and declared that her league had figured out a sustainable business model the WNBA couldn't crack after decades. The confidence suggested she'd unlocked something revolutionary about women's basketball economics. She spoke as if Unrivaled was thriving and the WNBA was fundamentally broken. Then opening night happened. Viewership came in at levels that would embarrass a regional cable access show. Engagement fell off a cliff. That sustainable model was hemorrhaging potential fans from day one. Critics immediately pointed out the obvious. Maybe you wait until your league actually succeeds before declaring victory over an organization that survived for nearly 3 decades. Because the timeline doesn't support Collier's narrative. She positioned herself and other veterans as the architects of women's basketball's recent growth. But the most dramatic spike in the sport's popularity didn't happen gradually. It happened the moment Caitlin Clark arrived. Ratings jumped to unprecedented levels during her games. Merchandise sales exploded around her presence. ESPN shifted coverage in ways they never had before. The correlation was impossible to ignore. Clark didn't benefit from groundwork laid by others. She created the groundwork everyone else is now trying to monetize. And Collier's sustainability argument collapses even further when you look at who Unrivaled couldn't attract. They couldn't land Caitlin Clark. They lost Angel Reese. Sabrina Ionescu isn't returning for season 2. Aya Wilson passed entirely. These aren't role players. These are the needle movers. How sustainable is a league that can't attract or retain the stars who actually bring audiences? The overhead defense doesn't save them either. Yes, playing in one location lowers costs. Yes, centralized training reduces expenses. But lower overhead doesn't equal sustainability when revenue is practically non-existent. Losing less money is still losing money. That's not sustainability. That's just failing more efficiently. And then there's the conflict of interest that makes this whole situation even messier. Nafisa Collier is the vice president of the WNBA while simultaneously running a competing basketball league. She sits at the negotiating table representing WNBA players while promoting a venture that directly competes with their employer. Her role requires unified messaging during CBA negotiations. Instead, she went on television calling WNBA leadership the worst in the world. Those comments didn't just undermine league leadership, they weakened the union's bargaining position. How do you demand better treatment from leadership you've publicly trashed? How do you negotiate revenue sharing while questioning whether the league knows how to run a business? Her attacks served 2 purposes: damaging the league she was meant to support while boosting the credibility of her competing venture. And younger players felt the pressure to stay quiet rather than challenge someone with that much power. The irony is brutal. She criticized the WNBA for lacking sustainability, while her own league posted ratings that made late-night infomercials look successful. She claimed Unrivaled was the future while failing the most basic test in entertainment: getting people to watch. Fans noticed immediately. Social media lit up with criticism. Threads broke down the numbers before and after Clark's arrival. Attendance charts told the story clearly. Fans weren't letting anyone rewrite history. And the response revealed who people actually believe is the future of women's basketball. Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, Lexi Hull. Young talent, real chemistry, players improving year after year. Stars who embrace the spotlight instead of resenting it. Clark's impact went far beyond ratings. Her signature Wilson basketballs sold out. The shoes she wore became must-have items. Jerseys, shirts, collectibles, everything tied to her flew off shelves. That's cultural penetration you can't manufacture. You either connect with fans or you don't. Unrivaled bet on succeeding without Caitlin Clark. And the numbers just proved how badly they miscalculated. 40,000 viewers versus 3 million tells you everything you need to know about who actually drives women's basketball forward. If you want to see how this disaster continues to unfold, hit like and subscribe, because this story isn't over. And it's only getting messier.